this morning's planning committee meeting. I'm going to ask Lynn for the Sedern, and apologies, please, Lynn.
Thank you, Provost, and good morning, members. Before I call the Sedern, I would remind everyone that today's proceedings will be recorded and uploaded to the Council's website for repeated viewing. In terms of the Sedern, when your name is called, could you confirm your attendance, please? We have an apology this morning from Councillor Maitland. Provost Todd.
Here.
We have an apology from Councillor Friel. Councillor Cowan.
Here.
Councillor Mackay.
Present.
Councillor Barton.
Here.
We have an apology from Councillor Holland. Councillor Lennox.
Holland here.
Councillor Crawford. Councillor Crawford. Councillor Watts.
Present, Lynn.
Councillor Filson.
Here.
We have an apology from Councillor Hogg and Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, I'm here, Lynn, thanks.
A call again for Councillor Crawford.
Yeah.
Thanks, Provost.
Thanks very much, Lynn. Folks, we're still working the hybrid model where people can come online, and that's an acceptable part of the hearing procedure and of planning. So there will be a slight delay when I make sure that everybody that wants to speak can speak. So I'll be referring to the screen a couple of times. If anybody needs anything, please look to Robert on your left, and he'll help with any inquiries or issues that may arise for yourself. There is a fire alarm on a Friday, but that's not until about 1 o'clock.
Yep.
So hopefully we might not be here at that time. But if it does go, only run after that chap if he runs out, if we're here. Okay, folks. Thanks very much. I'm going to ask, we'll get into the business proper, and I'll ask for declarations of interest. This is just asking any of the members who will be deliberating today if there's any interest in any of the items that are here before us today. So I'll ask for any declarations of interest.
No hands up, Provost.
We're okay, thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the first item, which is the planning application number, 22/0509/PP. And this is an application for planning permission for erection of 4 in number houses and relocation of overspill car park at the Finnick Hotel, 7 Comores Road, Finnick. And that's pages 5 to 44. And we'll hand over to the planning officer, who's going to give us the synopsis of this.
Thanks, Provost.
Fiona.
Thank you, Provost, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This application is before us today for a decision, as it's a local application which has received more than 10.
Fiona, sorry, I apologise. I need to announce this. This is a hearing procedure for this item, and we will follow the hearing procedure that's on the yellow sheet sitting next to the microphones, and we'll be following the hearing procedure at this item. Lynn?
Yep, through you, Provost, all parties have been made aware and are comfortable with the hearing procedure this morning. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The application, as I've said, is before us today because it's a local application, but it has received more than 10 objections and therefore requires to be determined by the Planning Committee. The application site is located within the Rural Protection Area, just immediately out with the boundary for Leigh Fenwick. It's located within the grounds of the Fenwick Hotel on the southern side of Comores Road. The site is currently an informal overspill car park for the hotel, finished with hard standing, with low-level trees and hedging along the Comores Road boundary. Proposed development is for the erection of 4 detached dwellings, the creation of an overspill car park to the south of the 4 plots for the hotel. Proposed dwellings will be 2-storey in height and of the same design and finish all over 4 plots. Further details follow in your report, members, starting at paragraph 5. If I can now do a wee presentation to you, members, I'll show you some plans, photographs, and just outline the boundary details and show you the split of the locale. So just bear with me till I do a share screen. Okay, can everybody see that okay? It's on the screens. Just give me a 1 sec till I do a slideshow. Okay, that should hopefully be a little bit better for you to look at. We have the boundary here, we have Leigh Fenwick here, just where my cursor hopefully will be showing you, and just north of that we have the boundary for Fenwick. You'll see the main road that travels through Fenwick and Leigh Fenwick to the right-hand side of the site, which is down here in the red outline, and to the left you'll see the motorway for the M77, and over past that you'll see the A77. But you'll see the red line site here, which shows you the hotel to the west, the fairly modern, fairly new housing estate to the north, and existing houses over to the east. And obviously you can see that there's fields, etc., to the south. Here is the application site plans that have been put in by the applicant. You'll see 4 houses along the north area of the site. The angular boundary of the red line site is the sightlines members that's required as part of the roads development guides to make sure the site can have the appropriate visibility upon entry and exit. So you'll see the 4 houses there, and you'll see the layout of the overspill car park to the rear of the 4 plots. The plan on the right hand side is just the existing arrangement, which shows basically just the plain application site, and you'll see some photos to show you how it is at the moment in a sec. These are the house type designs members. You can see the floor plans, both ground floor and upper, and along the top of the plan you can see the various 4 elevations for the house. Obviously the north elevation is the front and the south elevation is the rear. This is a plan that we just tend to put in, members, just for your information. This is the current East Ayrshire Local Development Plan from 2017. The black solid line is the boundary set. It's a settlement boundary line, and you can see, which is with the wee red arrow, the wee red circle, that the application site lies out with the red line site for the current LDP. The new LDP, members, which you'll see referred to in the report, you can see the red line site is now within the proposed settlement boundary. And obviously we've highlighted the status of the LDP2 to you, which is undergoing adoption process at the moment, but it's there for your information. Turning to some photographs just of the site and the surroundings. Here is the current overspill car park, which is informally laid out just with hardcore, bit of scrubland, bit of overgrown. The trees along here are what's along Commerce Road. So Commerce Road lies to the left of the photograph here, and you'll just see the overgrown nature of the site and the informal nature of the car parking area. Again, just the informal nature of the car parking area again. This is looking to the north and the new houses that are opposite the site. So you'll see the trees and the vegetation that lie along the boundary of the site with Commerce Road. Looking back towards the hotel members, you'll see the existing lined car park as part of the hotel members there. This is the access into the hotel grounds, and along the front here is where the 4 houses will face onto. And this is the road that takes you back down to meet the B751. This is just the road that takes you down to the B75. This is the access road that's referred to in the report, and these are the modern houses, the new houses that were built in the last few years. Looking back towards the hotel access, and obviously beyond the vegetation, is the M77. Just a view of the hotel members for you from the front at the front elevation. And that's just the junction with, at the boundary with Leigh Fenwick in there. Again, that's just the access road up to the hotel there, and that road will take you on to meet the M77 in Kilmarnock. I'm just going to go back, members, to the block plan because I just want to make you aware of one point that I found yesterday, and then I'll continue just with summarising the report. Okay, we have the block plan here, members. You might not be able to read it, but it's in the back of your report, I think. The car park layout refers to 68 spaces. I don't know if I can zoom in at all. If that maybe is any clearer for you there, members. I actually counted the spaces yesterday doing my prep for today, and I counted 65 lined spaces. You can see there's 3 cars that are parked at a kind of angle there. They're out with lined spaces. So I double checked the matter with Kevin Braidwood in ARA, And I spoke to Kevin and he's advised that he wouldn't count those spaces. So he's happy with 65 spaces. He says that's not material change. Roads wouldn't count the 3 spaces out with the lines, and they would seek for the car park to be fully lined before being brought into use. But roads are happy with the car park. I just wanted to clarify with roads whether those 3 spaces would count or not, and they don't. So roads are still happy with 65 spaces, but it was just an anomaly in the plans, members, that I wanted to clarify for myself, so I've done that. I'll leave that plan up, and if anybody's got any queries, we can refer to it later. Turning back to the report, we have no objections from consultees. Responses start at paragraph 10 of your papers. We have 11 representations to the proposal. 10 are objecting to the application and 1 takes a neutral stance. All objections are summarised and responded to in the report, but in brief focus on infrastructure, reduction in green space, noise and privacy impact, loss of light to neighbouring properties, increase in traffic on the access road, which is considered to be of insufficient width to accommodate further traffic, and concerns of cars parking on the public road and queries about accessing the site, removal of hedging, change in the outlook of existing properties, lack of bin storage, the site being out with the settlement boundary. The neutral representation notes that the site is relatively small compared to neighbouring properties. Distance to the nearest school, play park, playing fields and nursery means that children wouldn't walk to these facilities. The width of the access road is of a concern, and ARA should look at widening this road where possible. All points are responded to in the report. Sections 25 and 37(2) of the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act as amended require that applications be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. Here, for this application, MPF4 takes precedence where there is incompatibility between the LDP and MPF4. The policies of both documents have been considered in detail within this report. The application site is brownfield. It's surfaced with gravel and hard standing, and it's currently used as an informal overspill car park for the Fenwick Hotel. There is not considered to be any prospect of the site naturalising without intervention due to the works that have been previously undertaken to surface the site. The design of the houses is considered to be appropriate as per paragraph 79 of the report, and car parking is shown as marked out and lined for spaces. Given the location of the site directly out with the settlement and in between the existing residential properties and the Fenwick Hotel, the site is considered to be of a suitable size and scale for the area. Post dwellings are 2 storeys, which is reflective of the modern properties that are already on Colmores Road. Each plot provides sufficient private open space in line with the East Ayrshire Local Development of 2017. Design and finish of the proposed dwellings are typical of new builds within built-up areas, uniform finish throughout, with a smooth white render, concrete tiles and white window and door units, consistent with the existing properties on Colmores Road. The scale, design, size and finish of the proposed dwellings are therefore suitable. The site has been found to be compliant with the 20-minute neighbourhood principle, and it's considered to be a suitable location to support all the facilities and services offered within Leigh Fenwick and Fenwick. The development of the site for both residential purposes and an overspill car park will contribute towards local living and the economy. In this particular instance, the principle of development is supported by MPF4, but not by the East Ayrshire Local Plan of 2017. For circumstances such as this, Scottish Government's Chief Planner is clear and issued a letter in relation to transitional arrangements for National Planning Framework 4, which advised that in the event of any incompatibility between a provision of MPF4 and a provision of an LDP, whichever of them is later in date is to prevail. Provisions that are contradictory and conflict would likely be considered to be incompatible. It's therefore concluded that there is an incompatibility between MPF4 and the East Ayrshire Local Development Plan 2017, and as MPF4 was adopted more recently in February of this year than the East Ayrshire Local Development Plan of 2017, MPF4 policy prevails. Given the weighting given to MPF4 in the assessment and determination of the application, which is supportive, the application is considered overall to be compliant with the development plan and would be a minor departure from the Local Development Plan of 2017. Overall, the proposed development is suitable size and scale, as I've explained to you. The proposed overspill car park will supplement the existing hotel operations and reduce the reliance for on-street parking for people using the hotel. MPF4 prevails in this instance, and the principle is supported by MPF4. In conclusion, the application complies in principle and detail, doesn't comply in principle with the LDP, but given the primacy of MPF4 and the overall support of MPF4, the application is acceptable overall in terms of the development plan. Just before I hand back to Chair, I'd really appreciate it if members could indulge me for a minute or two. I want to just turn to condition 22, which I'll get you a page number in just one sec, which is page number 40. I've noticed there that we don't actually have an implementation section for that condition. So what I would like to do is make the existing wording for condition 22, if you decide you want to grant planning consent, to be section A, and for section B to delegate the wording to me so that I can just put in a section to ensure that the approved levels are implemented before each house is built, and also in respect of the car park before the car park is brought into use. I'd also like to add an additional condition following the discussions I had with Kevin yesterday to ensure that the car park's lined out as per the approved layout within a timescale to be agreed with the planning authority. Kevin has asked that the car park, he would want to see the car park lined out, and just to make sure that happens within a certain timescale. Those are just basically technical details, members. I'm hoping you wouldn't mind adding those conditions, and therefore we would recommend approval of the application subject to the conditions in your report with the additional conditions that I've mentioned there. Thank you, and back to Chair.
Thanks very much, Fiona. Members, before we go on to the second part of the hearing procedure, are we in agreement for the additions that Fiona has outlined?
Agreed.
Yep. No other. That's great. Thank you very much, folks. Folks, there's 8 pieces to the hearing procedure in our established hearing procedure here at East Ayrshire Council. We've just had the first part. We're going on to the second part now, and this is where the objectors or any objectors will have a chance to give their submission. Because there's only one here present today, Greta, we're proposing 5 minutes for the objections, and it will be the same for the applicant because there's only one objector. So we've got 5 minutes, and this is where the objectors will give their thoughts on why it should be. Councillor Cowan.
Apologies, Chair. I have a question on the car parking. Could I put that to Fiona at the moment?
We'll come back to that.
Right, okay, I'll hold back. Thank you.
Thank you. Greta, 5 minutes.
Good morning. I'll start at the beginning, the location and setting of the proposals, as I hope you will consider continuing this application and making a site visit, starting from the junction of the road to the hotel off Main Road, Lake Fenwick. You've seen some photographs. I don't think they've done it justice. You haven't seen the spread of trees.
Mrs. Roberts, sorry to interrupt, but just to help with the presentation submission, the members went on a site visit on Wednesday, so they have been to the site.
Oh, good. Right. The views, as I say, are from this junction looking upwards are big hedges in the left-hand side, as you would have seen, then beautiful mature trees at the site frontage. I think the beech trees will be over 100 years old and will be, 70 feet high, 3 beeches and 1 other mature tree. Why was there no tree preservation order on these beech trees on the site? A neighbour told me that the council had refused to do that. Scarce mention in the planning report of the views in and out of the conservation area from this junction. Fenwick prides itself on its leafy approaches and its historic conservation area. There's vague mention of some hedging, but not shown on plans. 2, parking. The trees along the frontage would go to provide access for housing and parking for those houses and their sight lines. From the drawings, trying to park 3 cars side by side off-road will be a problem for each house because the driveway narrows and you come in and stack parking. What happens when the first in wants to be the first out? There'll be lots of manoeuvring and reversing onto Kilmore's Road, where I understand buses often travel up, tour buses, wedding parties, and the hotel with 300 conference or assembly spaces. 3, there's little or no mention of noise in this planning report, despite representations being made and questions asked about it. It's the same survey as before, which was just in March 2021 when the pandemic lockdown was starting. Strangely, this survey was taken one afternoon midweek for 3 hours with nighttime levels estimated. They don't appear to have considered noise generated by hotel visitors during the day, nor for the evening functions. This was required when the houses opposite at Rowell and Wind were planned. Environmental health are mentioned in the planning report, but only appear to be concerned about noise levels inside a house, and we're satisfied with that. Given the lack of amenity open space in Low Fenwick, attention should be paid to potential noise levels in private gardens, particularly if any are built with a car park behind their gardens, as shown on these plans. 3. Your planners refer to page 3 of the design statement and have concluded and highlighted in bold that the proposition of either development or possible closure is not a planning case, not a material planning consideration. This seemed to be a suggestion that this was a sort of do or die proposal for the hotel. Res 8 of the current development plan is, however, a planning consideration. This is outside the settlement boundary. An environmental 9 policy, an inappropriate settlement extension into the countryside. Also, 2-storey houses are shown. While this is technically countryside, 1.5 height limit is that. It is in fact still in the rural protection area, although described as brownfield, albeit used as a car park. It's even described as a gap site. This is a worrying precedent for the community.
1 minute left, Greta.
Any of the communities who live in the rural protection area, field to car park, to brownfield, to redevelopment. Finally, the future planned spa gym, which a 4-house development might fund. This should not be marked on any plans issued, albeit not shown within the red line site, but there is a plan showing this. With the applicants' other successful businesses, Riverside Lodge in Irvine and Premier Leisure in Saltcoats, where there are 2 screens, bar, diner and soft play, there's surely room for cross-subsidy if it really is necessary. The Fenwick Hotel is very popular. It's well run, well visited and appreciated by the local community. A bigger car park seems necessary, but not 4 houses there, and removal of fine 100-year-old trees. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Greta, for being within the 5. Thank you very much. Item 3 now on our on the hearing procedure is where members of the committee may ask any questions of the objector. So it's over to members. Just give it a few seconds to see if anybody online. No, we're okay. Thank you very much, Greta. Thank you. Section 4 of the hearing procedure is the applicant or their agents, and their agents will speak for a maximum of 5 minutes as well. So, gentlemen, it's over to you. Robert will show you how to speak through the microphone. Thank you. And just the same, it's 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to respond to the comments of Greta. First and foremost, the submission made today, my client is in full agreement with that, including the comments from the additional comments from the public utilities. Certainly, there's a bit of work to be done in terms of that area where we have to look at some of the services, but certainly it's all very much a doable situation. I had intended to talk a lot more about the hotel, but I'll maybe concentrate on Greta's comments, because some of these are new, some are old. But the beech trees, as she referred to, should be listed. That's a matter for the planning to do on a regular basis. Generally speaking, beech trees are not regarded in tree preservation per se, unless there's a particular feature to them. So I would be surprised if the planning authority chose to adopt them under preservation order. The issue in the hedges, hedge rows, yes, the drawings don't reflect the alignment of the hedge rows, but the design statement, which is a planning document submission, does refer to the hedge rows. And one of the conditions is that we have to present more detail on these hedge rows, i.e. the tree type, the cutting, the maintenance, etc., etc., etc. So there's plenty of dialogue in there that these hedgerows are going to happen, and they will have added value in that if they're grown to a reasonable height, they can actually help buff the sound emitting from the hotel and from the 77 car traffic. So there are benefits in the hedgerows, but they are a thing. The 3 car parking spaces raised, yes, front gardens generally now, and if we look at the other developments that have been carried out in the Fenwick area, and they're all small developments, they're all niche developments. There's nothing that's is commanding and taking over the settlement of Fenwick itself. But these 3 car parking spaces, they can be manoeuvred quite easily to incorporate the 3 cars. But the general rule here is that we have 3 car parking spaces plus a garage. So potentially there's 4 car parking spaces. We have 4 bedrooms. These are family homes. The chances of 4 cars in one family house is very extraordinary. It's highly unlikely that's to be happening. It may happen in times of guests coming to visit that house, but that's a circumstance that we experience across the country. If we've got birthday parties, Hogmanay or whatever, that is an experience we have to just deal with car parking. The 4th point, the noise, the acoustic issue. There was a report done, and we have to carry the work out on this site in accordance with that report, the findings of that report. Again, it's a condition of planning, and we have to abide by that. Now, if the conditions change by the time we get around to carrying this work out, then we have to do it to the current standards. But right now, there is a document in place telling the developer to develop the buildings in accordance with the acoustic report.
1 minute left.
Okay. The noise emanating from the hotel itself won't change. These parties, these weddings, these funerals, all the social interaction that goes on in the hotel will not change. The licenses now will be the same. Everything is the same. In fact, if anything, the 4 buildings that are being constructed again will act as a partial buffer to the reduction of the noise out to the wider part of the community. So that's unmeasurable, that's for sure. But you can understand that would happen. So there's a betterment in that regard. The last point, 2-storey houses. There are 2-storey houses in the new developments throughout the village. There are 2-storey houses all at the north side of Kilmarnock. 2-storey houses are much more effective for family homes.
Could you sum up, please?
In summary, my client is satisfied with all the conditions that have been placed on here. The questions that Greta has raised at this meeting this morning have, I think, either been answered through the design proposals, the conditions of planning, or further explanation I've given here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No.
On to the part where members can ask the applicant or agents any questions arisen. Councillor Cowan.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask the applicant, apologies, I didn't catch the name at the start, about the overspill car park and the loss of existing car park spaces. Can I have a rough idea how often that overspill car park is used, and does the applicant believe that the spaces there are sufficient?
The overspill car park is used primarily when we have weddings, funerals, and I would like to get it in a lined parking properly. I did start to do the overspill car park, but I was told to stop because of neighbour objections what I was doing. I don't know if I should have applied at that time, so I just stopped. Where it is, it can be finished properly, but I was advised to stop. So.
Thanks, members. Any other questions? May I ask, Fiona, could you kindly bring up the map, the plan, looking down on the proposed site? I've just got a couple of questions, guys, if that's okay. That's it. Thank you. If you could just, if you could increase. Can do it a lot quicker than I could. Yeah, lovely. Yes, that's it. Thank you very much. Just to the front of the proposed elevation, the north elevation of the houses, I noticed at the site visit the other day, there seems to be a kind of a ditch parallel to the road. And I wondered, is that a storm ditch? Does it flood in at times of storm? You know, that's okay. Yeah, sure.
Sorry, no, I've never saw water in it. No.
Not one up yet.
Yeah.
Could I answer that? It's conceivable, excuse me, it's conceivable that water has, that ditch has actually been put in there to collect the water. And that then the water would then disperse down through and distribute into the drainage system. We haven't got that far in the design proposals as yet, but that is something that we'll be discussing with Scottish Water. In Scottish Water's response to the planning application, they did generally say, and it's a kind of throwaway comment at this time, is that there are drainage in close proximity below the development. We're not quite sure, but there's issues there with Scottish Water, and that's why I said earlier that there's matters that we have to address here, technical matters. Everything is resolvable once we get to technical levels, but we don't know the full scope of that at the moment because it only came out with the planning report.
No, that's great. Thanks for that. Yeah, that's a reply. It was just something that jumped out at me. And
just one other point was that in the number of car parking spaces, I would accept that the 65 car parking spaces is probably more reflective than the 68. But just to do a count on that, there's actually 57 existing car parking spaces. Through the development, we will lose the 8 car parking spaces plus the 3 accessible car parking spaces. That's 11 car parking spaces, which means then that the total car parking spaces that we'll have with the overspill is 65. What we have to do is identify the pro rata accessible car parking spaces in light of the 2 car parking areas. What I would say is that the existing location of the accessible car parking spaces is in the wrong place anyway. It's too far away from the entrance. So we would reconfigure that and shunt them over closer to the entrance so that it's just a stepping stone. Yeah.
No, thank you very much for that. And if you could look to the east side of your proposed development, and that's all the back doors for those houses that are on the Kilmarnock Road. again, could you refresh my memory about screening? What type of screening are you proposing for those? And there's one house quite close.
Yes, there is an existing boundary wall there. The legality of that existing boundary wall, not quite sure. If it's a 50-50 or in all probabilities, it's the original houses that have the ownership because they were there first. But that's not been determined as yet. The proposal here in the long term is to either replace that wall or put up an alternative screening, and that would be primarily a hedgerow, because the hedgerow would certainly come round the curtilage boundary. Where it then extends into the car parking, it may be a timber fence, maybe a brick wall of sorts. It may be that the existing wall itself, the existing party wall, can be restored and built up again. In short, we don't have firm proposals for that yet, but that is something that we have spoken about, are the various options that would have to be done.
No, that's great. No, thanks. Thanks for that, members. Any further questions? Councillor Cowan.
Apologies, Chair. I just want to check my own understanding there. So we're saying there's approximately 57 spaces in the current car park, and the overspill will be reconfigured for approximately 65. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the inclusive, the 65. It may go down to 64 if we've got to incorporate 3 4 accessibles, but we're talking in the realms of that number, which is a big increase to what we've actually got just now.
Thank you, members. Any further questions at this juncture? No, thank you very much. That's us closing the hearing at this point. At this stage, the Head of Planning and Economic Development, or the representative, Fiona, will address the committee and give the appropriate clarification of any issues raised during our discussions. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Over to you, Fiona.
Thank you. I'm just checking my mic was on. I'll do my best just to summarise. As David has confirmed, David Mitchell has confirmed, we have done a site visit. Members were there with myself and the case officer on Wednesday, and we had a good look around the area and the application site. Mrs Roberts also raised the trees. The trees are not protected by a TPO. I'm not aware that we've ever refused to designate them as a TPO, but the trees are currently not designated as a TPO. We saw the condition of the trees and we saw the samples of the trees when we were there. The hedging isn't shown in the plan, that's correct. That's one of the reasons why the condition is written in the way it is. I think it's condition 20 on page 39, because I did ask the case officer when he was drafting the report to make sure that we referred to details required for the hedging, because we don't have that on the plan. So that's why condition 20 is worded in that respect. ARA are obviously happy with the car parking layout, the access details, etc. In terms of noise, we do have a noise report which has been through our professional advisors who are environmental health. They have accepted the terms and the conclusions of the noise assessment. We also have condition 17 on page 39, which actually refers to the design recommendations of the noise assessment being implemented on site prior to the occupation of each plot and being maintained thereafter. I would actually, if members choose to grant consent, having looked at that condition just now, just whilst I was preparing and taking some notes, I'd actually like to suggest to members that we amend the wording of that condition to say part A, that we get the specific details of what they're going to do on site to meet the requirements of the noise impact assessment given to and approved by planning before we start on site, and that thereafter, before each plot is occupied, each plot has everything implemented in accordance with the design, with the noise impact assessment. So I'd like to ask for members, if you wouldn't mind, if you do choose to grant consent, if it would be possible to amend the wording of that condition 17, just so that it's a bit more clear for members and also for future homeowners and the amenity of the area, etc., and the amenity of the residents, etc., as we do that. So have a wee look. Mrs Roberts referred to policy resi of local development plan. I've kind of covered that in my presentation, and it is covered in the report that whilst it is contrary to the principle of development because it is out with the settlement boundary in terms of the local development plan that's adopted, NPF4 makes it clear that it's appropriate in terms of the rural housing policy, it's appropriate in terms of brownfield, and it's appropriate in terms of the 20-minute neighbourhood, which therefore makes it compliant with NPF4. And NPF4, according to government position, takes precedent and more importance than RLDP because RLDP is older than the NPF4. Mrs Roberts also referred to two-storey housing in the rural protection area. Michael, the case officer, and I had a good debate about that and about the two-storey housing. Yes, that's correct. We would go for 1.5 storey in the rural area, but this site is different and it's justifiable, in my opinion, to look at two-storey housing, looking at what's round about, looking at what's opposite and proximity to the boundary, and also looking at LDP2 where we are bringing this site to within the settlement boundary. So in this instance, I am happy to recommend with two-storey housing. Sorry, I'm just working through these notes. I think Mrs Roberts also referred to precedent. Apologies if I picked that up wrong, but there is no precedent in planning. Every application is assessed on its own individual merits. I'll just turn around to the applicant's comments. Just read my own writing, which is the problem here. You'll see the applicant referred to condition 20, and I've clarified why we've worded condition 20 in that respect. I've also referred to condition 17, and I've asked members if you wouldn't mind amending the wording for that, should you wish to go for planning consent today. And I think that is me for the moment, but happy to come back in if required.
Thanks, Fiona. It's open to members now for discussion points. Clarify members. Councillor Cowan.
Thank you, Chair. I'm still on the car park. I know it was stated in Fiona's initial presentation that ARA were happy with the 65, 68 parking spaces, but I'm just wondering, is there any national guidance or criteria formula that is used to determine the size of car park for facilities such as this?
I believe there is the Rose Development Guide. All I can say to you is, oh, Craig, apologies.
Yeah, you are correct. There is the National Roads Development Guide that gives clear details about the parking, the restrictions, neighbourhoods, etc.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you.
Members, any further points? Councillor Barton.
Thanks. It's just some clarification due to the proximity that the homes to the hotel and your conditioning the noise reduction. Would you be wanting as a process, like to try and reduce if there's a function on, etc., that we ensure that the noise levels are contained within the proper limits?
Yeah, just to confirm, and apologies to all participants, that's the point we were just tightening up on and making sure it was addressed during the applicant's submission. So apologies, we didn't intend to be ignorant if we were, but we were just making sure. There's a number of aspects around noise. There's the construction noise and the impact on existing properties. There is the noise impact from the proposed development on the existing properties once they're built and occupied. But the tightening up of the condition there is to make absolutely sure we also can assist the applicant to deal with any noise impacts from the hotel on the new buildings. And there's a concept of agent of cause. So if a planning authority consents new houses next to a source of noise, then the mission is to get them soundproofed to address the noise impact assessment that you've heard of, and to make sure that there's sufficient soundproofing built in at the time of construction to mitigate the impact of existing noise sources. If you fail to do that, and if the houses are built with insufficient mitigation, then actually they can still have a valid complaint against the source of the noise, even though the houses came afterwards. And that's just a general concept. So the tightening up of the wording will allow us to deal with all impacts around the noise impact assessment, the construction, the impact of the occupation on the resident properties, and the potential impact on the new properties from the existing hotel activities. That's the purpose. So the noise impact assessment will inform what levels of noise are expected, which will inform what level of mitigation will be required through the pre-commencement conditions, because it's a point that can sometimes be overlooked, and if any members of the licensing board are here, they'll know that, and it's not one we'd be wanting to overlook here. So that's one where we would work with the developer, should the committee be minded to consent, to make sure the mitigation's identified, the need for it's identified, and it's built into the construction of the homes, so that we don't have, or at least reduce the risk and mitigate as far as we can the risk of noise impacts on the new developments from the hotel. And we will continue to see that through on the back of the condition as proposed, should the committee be minded to grant.
Thank you. Members, is there no further questions or comments? Just one for myself, Craig, with roads. We've got the access road off the Kilmarnock Road. We've already got houses there, and I've been up there a couple of times where unfortunately folk are parking down that road at busy times. Is there anything ARA could say that would alleviate any issues if the planning consent went ahead?
So again, it will be addressed if it becomes an issue. Yeah, we will address it.
Yeah, that's acceptable to me. Thanks very much, folks. I'm going to bring it to a close now, and we'll go for determination, if that's okay with everybody. No late questions? We're okay. Well, I would like to propose consent for the application.
Do you, Provost, can I just confirm that those include the amendments to condition 17 and 22 and the additional condition 25 the officers have alluded to earlier? Provost, thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Lynn. I was going to put that on at the end.
Sorry.
No, thank you for keeping me right. If there's any, that's a proposal. I'm looking for a seconder.
I'll second, Provost.
Oh, Councillor Stewart.
Councillor Stewart, thank you very much. Is anybody otherwise minded? And that's a proposal and seconder for consent under consideration of the proposed conditions from the officer. Are we okay with that? Over to you, Lynn. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. The decision of the committee is that the application has been approved, subject to the conditions and for the reasons detailed in the report, including the amendments to condition 17, condition 22, and additional condition 25 regarding the lining of the car park. Thank you, Provost.
Thanks very much, Lynn. Thanks, folks. That's the hearing procedure over for this part. Robert will see you out if you want to go just now. Thank you. Folks, we're on to item 4 of your agenda today, and this is the planning application number 22/0003/S36. This is a consultation under section 36 of the Electricity Act 1989 relating to the construction and operation of a wind farm comprising 12 wind turbines with a maximum blade tip height of up to 180 metres, solar arrays, battery energy storage and ancillary infrastructure, including tracks at Knockkippen Wind Farm near Patna, pages 45 to 122. And that's David. Graham, sorry, Graham. Thanks, Graham.
Okay, thank you, Provost. Good morning, everyone. The Council received a consultation request from the Scottish Government for an application made under Section 36 of the Electricity Act 1989 for the proposed Knockkippen Wind Farm, as the generating capacity would be in excess of 50 megawatts. The Council, as a formal consultee in this process, requires to provide a response to Scottish ministers to the consultation and can either offer no objection to the Section 36 application as submitted, offer no objection subject to the imposition of appropriate conditions and/or legal obligations it considers necessary to make the development acceptable, or object to the application, stating the grounds on which the objection is made. This slide shows the application site boundary outlined in red of the proposed wind farm. The site is located to the east of Patna and Waterside on the upper slopes of the Doon Valley. Access would be taken from A713, just here, and with an additional access to the north from the B730. This slide shows the proposed site layout of the wind farm. Key infrastructure proposed includes 12 wind turbines, 4 of which would be a maximum height of 150 metres and 8 would be a maximum height of 180 metres. Associated with this would be turbine foundations, hard standings and switchgear kiosks, access tracks, control buildings, a battery energy storage system, a 24-hectare solar farm including switchgears, power transformers and access tracks, and a telecommunications relay mast, and also a temporary construction compound and laydown area, including car parking. Some of the access tracks would utilise and upgrade those associated with the former Dunstan Hill open cast works, and some limited infrastructure would be located on or fringing on what was the former open cast site. The proposed development would have a total generating capacity of approximately 96 megawatts, taking account of the wind turbines, the solar farm and the battery energy storage system. The construction period would last approximately 1 year, with an operational lifetime of 35 years and then decommissioning and site restoration thereafter. The Council has consulted a number of consultees, whilst the Scottish ministers have consulted more widely, as they will be the ones determining the application. Of the consultees contacted by the Council, none have raised any objections to the proposed development, although this is subject to conditions in many cases. The consultation undertaken by the Scottish Government has resulted in a number of responses from various organisations, most of whom do not object to the application, also subject to conditions. Glasgow Airport and National Air Traffic System object currently due to aviation safety impacts. Discussions are ongoing between the aviation bodies and the applicant with a view to agreeing potential mitigation. As the Scottish ministers will be determining the application, it will be for them to consider this matter when reaching a conclusion on the application. A review of the Scottish Government Energy Consents Unit website has indicated there were 8 representations received by Scottish ministers in respect of the application, all objecting to the application. Some of the main concerns, amongst others, relate to landscape and visual impacts, aviation lighting impacts, noise and shadow flicker impacts, water supply impacts and cumulative impacts. It will be for Scottish ministers as the determining authority to consider these representations and what weight they attach to these matters raised in the objections in coming to decision on the application. There now follows a series of slides showing photomontages and wire lines from a select number of viewpoints to provide a sense of some of the landscape and visual impacts likely throughout the area. Some of the photomontages have been scaled to better fit the height of the slide, as when viewing photomontages on monitor, they should be enlarged to fit the full screen height, to more accurately reflect the scale of the turbines in the view. The slides are all taken from the environmental information and are used for context only in this presentation, with the detailed environmental information available to view as background papers. So this first slide is from viewpoint 1, which is representing views from Patna, and this is approximately 2.2 kilometres from the nearest turbine at this point. This is the baseline photograph along the top, with the cumulative wire line beneath that. And this is part of the photo montage showing the representative view of turbines from this location. And this second one is just moving slightly over to fit the rest of the turbines in the screen. And then this final one is the nighttime photo montage showing the representative nighttime impacts with the aviation lighting shown on some of the turbines. Not entirely sure if it's clear on that, unfortunately. And this slide is from viewpoint 7, which represents views from the northwestern edge of Dunmellington and that's approximately 4.3 kilometres from the nearest turbine at this point. Again, you have the baseline photograph along the top, and beneath that you have the cumulative wire line below that, showing Knockkippen being the wind farm to the right-hand side of the screen. This is a photo montage from Dunmellington showing the representative views of the turbines from this location. And then this is a nighttime photo montage, again showing the turbines with the aviation lighting at the turbine hubs. The following slides here provide representative photo montage view from the closest residential property, which is the old schoolhouse, and this is approximately 900 metres from the nearest turbine. This property is one that without mitigation would be considered to exceed the threshold of residential visual amenity, effectively making the property an unattractive place to live. So that's the view sort of looking towards the north from the house, and that's the view more sort of easterly, and then that's towards the sort of southeast of the view. So you can see that they're quite prominent turbines, and they do encompass a large section of the view. In the Planning Authority's opinion, if suitably scaled woodland planting was undertaken and maintained for the lifetime of the development, which provided effective screening to reduce the impacts, then although remaining significant and adverse, we would not consider that they would exceed the threshold of residential visual amenity. The applicant has provided a representation of the sort of screening which could be achieved through planting, and again, if that was to be delivered, we think that would be sufficient to reduce the impacts so that they no longer exceeded the threshold of residential visual amenity. And then this final photo montage is the view from Lethen Hill, which is excluded from the application site, albeit it falls within the wider application site surrounding it. This view is looking southwards across parts of the area where the solar farm would be located. The viewpoint is north of the panels, so you're not seeing the face-on view of them, but it does give you an impression of what the solar farm might look like on the hillside. In terms of the assessment of impacts of the proposed development, landscape and visual impacts are the most obvious and apparent impacts associated with wind farms. As the slides have demonstrated, there will be varying impacts from different locations and distances from the proposed turbines. The location of the proposed development will result in significant adverse landscape and visual impacts, particularly on the Doon Valley and the settlements there. However, these are not considered so adverse that they would be unacceptable. Nighttime lighting impacts would similarly not be unacceptable, though this would be subject to mitigation being implemented as set out within the committee report. The visual impacts associated with the solar farm and the battery energy storage system would not be as significant as those associated with the wind turbines themselves, and have not been found to be unacceptably adverse. Noise from the wind farm and battery energy storage system and the solar farm can be controlled by suitable limits, with which the Council's noise consultant, Acon UK Limited, have advised on, and which can be discussed with the Scottish Government Energy Consents Unit, should ministers be minded to approve the development. Other impacts cover a range of issues such as ecology, ornithology, forestry, hydrology, traffic, peatland, and the historic environment, amongst others. Most impacts are capable of being addressed by appropriate mitigation, subject to being secured by conditions. In terms of Policy 3 of NPF4 and the requirement for significant biodiversity enhancement, there's a question mark over the extent to which the current proposals would comprise significant biodiversity enhancement or simply mitigation of the impacts associated with the development. It will be for Scottish ministers to determine whether the applicant's proposals go far enough to qualify as significant biodiversity enhancement, or whether more is needed. If more is needed, it is likely that conditions would provide a suitable mechanism for securing further habitat enhancements over and above those currently proposed to achieve the aim of delivering significant biodiversity enhancement on the site. In terms of financial implications, the applicant has so far not provided any decommissioning report, so we've not been able to start negotiations on the quantum of any financial guarantee for the decommissioning, restoration and aftercare of the site, should consent ultimately be granted. However, the applicant has agreed to enter into a Section 75 legal agreement to provide a financial guarantee, and the council would expect negotiations on the quantum of that to continue as the Scottish ministers consider the application. In terms of other potential financial implications, should the Planning Committee be minded to object to the proposed development contrary to the recommendation of the Chief Governance Officer, this will trigger a public local inquiry, and this would result in financial implications, including the potential costs incurred in engaging external expert advice, support or representation, giving evidence on the council's behalf at the inquiry. So to conclude, the proposed development will result in a number of impacts, some of which will be significant, particularly landscape and visual impacts. However, many other impacts are capable of being mitigated, and residual impacts are not considered to be so adverse that they would be unacceptable. On that basis, it is recommended that the Council does not object to the development and informs the Scottish Ministers in its response that should they be minded to grant consent for the development, that the Council's position of no objection is subject to the conclusion of a Section 75 legal agreement to include those matters detailed within the legal implications section of the report, and also that the Planning Authority is to be involved in any discussions with the Scottish Government and the applicant concerning appropriate planning conditions, and also securing the planting and maintenance for the lifetime of the development of woodland screening to address impacts on residential amenity at the old schoolhouse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Members, this is a consultation back to the Scottish Government about this application. Are there any questions or comments? We're okay, give it a few seconds. Yeah, nobody's jumping in. Oh no, Councillor Filson, Drew.
Thanks, Chair. There's been a really good local consultation taking place by this wind farm company over the past few months. I'd be quite happy to move the recommendations, but include the planting of the screen, especially in front of partner.
Yeah, absolutely happy to support that. Drew, is Graham, are you okay with what Councillor Filson's proposed?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Provost. Thank you, Councillor Filson.
Thanks very much. Your hand's still up, Drew. Do you want back in? No, good, thank you. Everybody okay with what's been proposed, with the recommendations the planners are putting in to Scottish Government? Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Provost. The decision of the committee is that the Council raised no objection to the proposed development subject to the points that are detailed in paragraph 2 of the report. Thanks, Provost.
Thanks, Graham. Good report. Item 5 is compliance monitoring update of major developments and environmental projects, pages 123 to 148. And that's over to Vary. Thank you.
Thanks, Provost, and good morning, everybody. So this compliance report covers the period from the 1st of April to the 30th of June 2023. So we are going back a wee bit in time just because of the recess of the Council. I'll give a short summary of the main points within the report, but members should refer to the more detailed summaries in the appendices. So starting with open cast coal, only Greenburn and House of Water are currently being restored or on aftercare. Restoration works remaining at Greenburn consist of the public road underpasses and the railhead infrastructure. A new bond has been put in place to cover those remaining works. Clearance works have been completed at House of Water, and it is expected that the operator will soon claim the remainder of the escrow monies, and the completion report can come before members, come before the committee soon, hopefully. The major development section mainly covers residential major developments. The main issues relating to such sites tends to be matters relating to construction phase, i.e. working out with stated hours or not working in accordance with traffic management plans, etc. More details within Appendix 2. Officers have been addressing and monitoring such issues as appropriate. Moving on to wind farms. 3 wind farms are currently under construction. Sorry, my eye's stinging here for some reason. 3 wind farms are currently under construction in the area. The North Kyle Wind Farm has commenced development and is being monitored by an independent monitoring officer and a council officer. The main issue at Snedden Law in the reporting period has been dust control and mitigation measures in the form of a second bowser, along with reduced vehicle speeds, seems to have addressed this. South Kill Wind Farm is nearing completion with what is essentially a mop-up of the remaining outstanding issues being undertaken. These relate to the restoration of some of the temporary infrastructure areas, as well as regulating some unauthorised forestry access tracts. At Whiteley, which is operational, the review of the bond of the Whiteley Wind Farm has been ongoing for a number of years, and surveys have been commissioned by the operator in the last reporting quarter to inform the revised quantum, and the council still awaits the submission of the outcome of these surveys. Moving on to quarries in the area, these generally continue to operate in general compliance with conditions, plans and legal agreements. The only matter to note is an outstanding requirement for a review of a habitat and bird monitoring plan at Garpool Quarry, which is a requirement of the Section 75 agreement. The operator does now appear to be making progress on this. However, there has been some difficulty in engaging with RSPB and Nature Scott. However, it's hoped that further progress will be made by the next reporting period. As per paragraph 2, it is recommended that members note the content of the report and note that no formal enforcement action has been undertaken or warranted. Thank you.
Thanks, Vary. Members, you've got the papers through them the other day. Are you happy with what has been proposed? Nothing coming up. Thanks very much, folks. Thank you. Thanks, Vary. The last item, folks, is the update report on progress of planning applications which have been recommended for approval, which are subject to the conclusion of an appropriate legal agreement and or are legacy planning applications in East Ayrshire. Pages 149 to 155. David.
Thanks, Chair. This report is the quarterly report on progress with applications subject to a legal agreement and legacy planning applications, and the report covers the period April to June 2023. In terms of this reporting quarter, paragraphs 10 and 11 and Appendix Table 1 show that there are 6 applications awaiting conclusion of legal agreement, the same number as the last quarter. 2 applications were actually concluded during the quarter, although 2 new applications requiring a legal agreement have been added in the quarter. In respect of legacy applications, paragraphs 12 and 13 and Appendix Table 2 show that there are 16 legacy applications, which is 2 less than the last reporting quarter. 6 legacy applications were cleared in this quarter, with 4 added. Many of these applications are under processing agreements, which project manages the application to revise timescales, and most applications are progressing acceptably. 2 applications are noted are considered to have stalled, which is noted in paragraph 13. That's due to delays by the applicant in providing supporting information for one of those applications, and the other is in respect of resolving some consultee objections. Both of these will be progressed for decision in what is now the current reporting quarter, unless these outstanding matters are resolved satisfactorily. So we're looking to bring them to a head sooner rather than later. A number of the applications listed in the tables have actually been cleared in the current reporting quarter, which reflects the gap between the end of the reporting quarter and this committee following summer recess. And a number of these are noted in the tables for your awareness. So the numbers I'm telling you about is a snapshot in time at the end of the reporting quarter, and that's obviously moved on a bit from when I'm speaking to you now. Members are therefore just asked to note the content of the report and the actions in each application set out in the tables, which is essentially to allow continued progress on each legacy and legal agreement application at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Members, you've got a list of these outstanding ones. Are there any points, any questions of clarification? No, we're okay. That concludes today's. Oh, sorry, Councillor Filson. Yep.
Thanks, Chair. Just asking the one about Polhurn Wind Farm near Sinclairstone. Just asking David there. I see we're waiting the Section 75 comments coming back. Do we know any time scale for this one starting if everything goes okay?
Graham, yeah, Graham will give that one. Graham will give that one.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Filson. Just as an update on that one, we have issued a draft Section 75 to the applicant. We're currently awaiting comments from them on that Section 75 legal agreement. I believe one of my colleagues in legal services is actually due to chase them up possibly this week or next week. But we are waiting for their comments back. So the Section 75 is being negotiated. Once that reaches its conclusion, we would then be in a process to issue the decision on that one. But it is sort of moving forward, albeit slowly.
Okay, thanks very much. Cheers.
That's great. Thanks, folks. That brings us to a conclusion for today. Thanks, everyone, for coming up, and thanks to the officers. Thanks for popping in, Greta. Thank you.